I don't understand what the police's role is in this. Maybe Ben Habib can help us. He's the leader of Advance UK. Ben, very good morning to you.
Morning. I'm not sure I can help you, Mike.
I mean, this is about as outrageous a story as I thought we had last week when we found out that the government had been holding, truths from us and taking out super injunctions so that we never found out that they were smuggling tens of thousands of Afghan migrants into the country and not telling us about it and putting them into houses, putting them into hotels. We've now got the police admitting that they've actually been assisting left-wing activists to go and cause trouble in a local town in Essex. It's unbelievable.
It takes two-tier policing to another level.
Seriously,
the police have effectively become activists themselves.
Yeah,
taking a position in the debate, and you call these people anti-racist demonstrators, left-wing anti-racist demonstrators. There's nothing racist about those who had congregated in Epping to protest against illegal migrants being settled in their otherwise peaceable town, one of whom assaulted a 14-year-old girl, allegedly assaulted a 14-year-old girl. And for the police to ship in these so-called anti-racists, taking by the description that they ascribe to these protesters, giving them the moral high ground by calling them anti-racist, removing the moral high ground for those who are legitimately protesting against illegal migrants. They are revealing themselves to have a view. Right. The police have a view on the subject, and the police should not have a view. The police should just be there to make sure that the demonstrations are peaceful, and they weren't. They were taking an activist position. And so we know precisely where the institutions of this country have got to now in their view on migration. And Angela Rayner's mealy-mouthed words talking about the need to take on board the concerns of communities, and it's incumbent on the government to take steps to, keep communities peaceful, etc. They absolutely underegg the extent of the problem and what is now required. We need a 180-degree turn in the method by which this country is governed, starting with the end of mass migration and the absolute stopping of illegal migration, coupled with the deportation of everyone who is in this country illegally.
Well, it's a bit like throwing a bomb into a shop and then walking in later and going, this is absolutely outrageous the way people have come in and taken things out of this shop and looted it, instead of actually addressing who set the bomb off, because it's the bomb that's the problem, and the bomb in this case is the migrants, right? And for Angela Rayner to say it's incumbent on the government to help the communities to sort all this out, she's supposed to be the Minister for Communities. It's her bleeding job, isn't it?
The government has got no inclination, no intention whatsoever to sort this out. As you said before I came on the programme, Keir Starmer has declared against removing the ECHR.
Right.
Well, the ECHR is at the heart of the problem here. It's the ECHR and its embodiment through the Human Rights Act in British law that removes the distinction effectively between what it means to be a British citizen and a migrant, which is why people find it, including our judicial system and police, find it so hard to find a balance. They struggle to find a balance between what is in the interest of British citizenry and what is in the interest of humanity at large. And they conflate the two. They're confused. They think that migrants should have absolutely the same right as British citizens, including on entering the country. So we don't even have the courage now to intercept their dinghies in the channel, stop them and tell them to go back to France. We are completely overridden by this extreme form of the ECHR, the Human Rights Convention that is, infected our institutions and the way that we govern ourselves.
Yeah, but I mean, it shouldn't do that, because there are no European countries that have anything like the kind of slavish, adherence to the ECHR as we do. Every single person in the judiciary here seems to think that the ECHR is the highest court in the world. It isn't. All they do is they make recommendations, which you can either follow or not follow. The Danish don't worry about the ECHR when they deport people back to the countries they came from. The Germans don't worry about it. Look at what the Greeks are doing. The Greeks are part of the European Union. They couldn't give us stuff. They're locking people up. They're detaining migrants coming onto their shores, and they've told them, if you come here illegally, we will put you in a detention centre and we will escort you militarily back to North Africa.
They're trying very hard. But even Meloni, who had, relatively benign equivalent of the Rwanda plan, taking migrants to Albania where they could then apply for asylum to Italy, really quite a soft approach. Even she had the European Court interfere. I think it's not quite right to say that the court's rulings are only advisory. We have signed up to the court's rulings being binding in the United Kingdom on cases brought in the United Kingdom, which is why they can, defeat our domestic courts all the time. Though our domestic courts
Yes, but we didn't have to do that, Ben, did we?
No, we didn't have to do that.
That was an act of self-harm that we could easily undo, surely.
Absolutely. I mean, there are 4 or 5 acts of parliament. But by the way, there are millions of acts of parliament that need to be repealed. But there are 4 or 5 that need to be repealed instantly if we want to restore some kind of semblance of common sense to the way this country is governed. And one of them is the Human Rights Act. It has to go. It is absolutely hijacked what it means to be British. It has removed our borders. It's given migrants exactly the same rights and privileges as a British citizen. And we've forgotten what it means to hold a British passport. These people are coming across here as if they have the same rights as we do. And indeed, with the other act of parliament that needs to be repealed, the Equalities Act, now have progressive discrimination in their favour. So that British citizenry stands by and watches while these people are given first run at everything, including our housing, NHS, etc. And as you say, it is going to result in violence. And the last thing we want is violence, because the government will use that as an excuse to become ever more draconian in the measures it uses to police us. 2-tier policing will go through the roof. We don't want violence, but the government needs to wake up and start doing what's right for the country, which means putting the national interest first. It's very simple, but they will not do it.
And it also means surely getting rid of some of the chief people at the top of the Essex Police Department who have made this decision. Let's have a look. We've got a clip from just the other day. Police busing counter-protesters back to the railway station after they've been demonstrating against local people in Epping. Have a look.
Buses. They're calling them buses. They're calling them buses. Wait, can you get me a bus back to my car, please? What time's the next bus? Buses. You know what they say? You wait 15 minutes for a bus and then 3 come all along at once.
Been another major loss for the left in the country. That Epping stands against.
Look, they're all cramming in. You got a spare bus down there? Make sure you got your bus passes.
Those are police vans being used to transport demonstrators, left-wing activists, back to the train station, which the police say is entirely within their remit. It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable, and I think the police do it because they think they're on the right side of the moral debate. But this is where the police have lost the plot. They're not meant to have a view on morality. They're meant to enforce the law. They're meant to be blind in the enforcement of the law, but they're taking the view that the so-called anti-racist protesters have the moral high ground and deserve the police's attention and support. That is not what the police are meant to be there for. But of course, the police are also taught progressive discrimination. The police, through their training, are taught that diversity, equity and inclusion, which is effectively the progressive discrimination in favour of ethnic minorities, is the right thing to do. Our court system is riddled with judges who believe the same thing. So even though I've mentioned repealing certain acts of parliament, including the Human Rights Act, actually what we are going to need, and you touched on it, Mike, is a complete re-education of our judiciary and our police. We need to reverse all the education that they've had over the last few years, which gives them the belief that they should be doing this kind of thing.
Right. But I mean, in what world does this even happen? I mean, we've got the front page of the Times today. The Prime Minister is demanding urgent action from cabinet ministers to avoid a repeat of last summer's riotings. Well, it's not cabinet ministers who are going to stop the riots. It's people like the police making stupid decisions like this that are going to rile people up and who are going to next time see police and witness to them and say, you people are no longer the police. You are now activists, so we're going to attack you.
It's completely ludicrous, and we're seeing a collapse, effectively, of the United Kingdom. I'm going to change the subject slightly, but in the same week that Reeves has been shown to have borrowing completely out of control,
Yeah.
she's announced a new spending scheme for people to switch their perfectly good cars to electronic vehicles. On the altar of the net zero ideology, she's exacerbating the economic problems we already have. It is these ideologies to which our government is wed, from which they will not deviate, that is so damaging our constitutional, cultural, and economic fabric at every single level. The migration issue is obviously constitutional, cultural, and of a criminal justice nature, and the economic approach that they've got is similarly damaging. It doesn't manifest itself in violence, but I can tell you, when people become destitute, which is where this government is taking us, in part through mass migration, when people become destitute, they have no option but to get on the streets and show their anger against the government's policies that brought them to that position.
Right.
The government needs to start making decisions for the British national interest. And it can do it so easily. It could pivot easily overnight if it wished to. It would repeal the Human Rights Act. It would repeal the Equalities Act. It would say justice is blind. It would stop the boats in the channel and send them back. It would ditch net zero. You just do that alone, Mike, just what I said out there, we would have a seismic improvement in the status of this country overnight.
Absolutely right. I've just got this from Tower Hamlets Council, believe it or not, and this is about the Britannia Hotel situation in Canary Wharf, which we talked about earlier. We are aware of the government's decision to use the Britannia Hotel in Canary Wharf to provide temporary accommodation for asylum seekers. It is important that the government ensures that there is a full package of support for those staying at the hotel. We are working with the Home Office and partners to make sure that all necessary safety and safeguarding arrangements are in place, which means, presumably, that they're going to send a lot of police down there to make sure whoever's demonstrating outside doesn't upset the migrants. Well, I'm sorry, it's a bit late for that, because they were there last night. And the word is now spreading every time one of these hotels is commandeered, every time people turn up to a hotel and get told, I'm sorry, we haven't got a room for you, despite the fact you booked it 6 months ago, because we've now taken the place over for migrants. And people are sick to death of being told that they're going to have to pay more taxes to support all of this nonsense, right? Because it's costing billions and billions of pounds a year. And people might say, look, we understand that we're in trouble. We understand that you might have to tax us a little bit more. We might have to pay 5% on our council tax. We might have another 1% on income tax. But they're not paying for this. They're not going to do it anymore.
Well, we've rehearsed this before, but they would gladly remove the support from pensioners for their heating bills. But they're putting these migrants up in £460 a night bedrooms in Canary Wharf and giving them protection. Our veterans sleep rough, many of them, suffering from all sorts of post-military mental health issues. And our government doesn't look after them, throws them under a bus, but will protect. Will house and then protect these people who are in this country illegally.
Perhaps they'd like to pop down to All Bar One and have dinner on me. Maybe they could do that. That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
40 years ago, Mike, when I was growing up, we called people who enter the country illegal aliens. Now we call them irregular migrants. It shows you how we've been hijacked. It shows you that change of language, shows you how the ideology of our governing institutions has changed so dramatically against the British national interest. They are illegal aliens. They are illegal aliens. They need to be called what they are, and they need to be removed.
What the police should be doing is taking them and arresting them all and putting them somewhere like Wormwood Scrubs or Glastonbury or somewhere, and putting them behind a fence and say, look, you are now being detained until we can work out how the hell to get you back to the country you came from, because you're not welcome here, you don't belong here, and you've broken the law by getting into this country illegally. Simple as that.
100%. There has to be zero tolerance of the crime of breaking into the United Kingdom. Zero tolerance. And until we get there, we're going to see this kind of nonsense happening in the country.
Yeah, absolutely right. Ben, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Ben Habib, leader of Advance UK. Let's get